So welcome back. I just finished up turn 2 of Battle for Stalingrad, John Hill's game, originally from 1980, SPI 2007 Excalibur. So yeah, I gotta say it goes a lot faster when I don't videotape every single moment of every single step. But just to give you an overview of what happened this turn, a lot of action still here in the southwestern corner. I almost managed to pocket a bit of the Soviet forces, but some reinforcements came in from this ferry and started making their way that way. They were able to punch through and make a hole right here. One of the things I was not realizing earlier was that zones of control don't necessarily extend into most of the terrain that you're fighting in. So I had managed, as you can see, get like a pocket going there, like hex by hex, but yeah, they couldn't hold these like last couple right around there. They did manage to take some victory hexes. There's a victory hex right there, victory hex right there. The Germans managed to take those and hopefully can hold it for a little bit. They managed to take the hilltop, the one I can't pronounce, Mamayev Kurgan. They took that right away. That was basically the first thing the Germans did. And what that did was it changes how many reaction chits you pull out every time you see if the Soviets take over. It goes from 2 to 1. So because of that, the Germans ended up getting to move basically at will for most of the turn. In fact, there's a bunch of Soviet reaction phases. Like the Germans basically had their first turn, Soviet reaction phase happened over here. They got, some units to move in, punch a hole there. Germans took back over, and basically the Soviets never drew another chit in their favor. So the Germans were basically able to take their entire turn without the back and forth you expect from this game. So in the end, I didn't quite know what to do. So I just sort of had the Soviets take their final reaction phase. They sort of, I don't want to say they skipped their other reaction phases, but they kind of did, like I sort of had them do their second one. I went through the process, then I went through their third one, and then I did their final one. I wasn't sure if I was just supposed to jump to the final one and just go from there. But the main thing is that just brings in the reinforcements. It's not like I was, the movement wouldn't have mattered too much based on what I was doing, but I sort of incrementally brought in the Soviet reinforcements. Again, brought a lot of them in here and a lot of them in there. I don't think I took any over here, and I probably have forgotten the armor that comes out of these factories. I don't remember if that's the beginning of the turn or the end of the turn. If it's the end of the turn, I'll figure it out once I'm done with this recap and add those armor units to wherever they need to go. But what I'm realizing here, especially when I was trying to take these victory hexes are you can see fortified structures. Fortified structures for the Soviets. I was taking whatever German firepower, quartering it. So it took a lot of firepower, as you would expect, to dislodge those units. Put these units back here. So yeah, I was taking tons of artillery. I was adding dive bomber points, trying to get my attacks up to like the 50-60 range. So when you quarter it, it goes down to 15. Even after you quarter it, you're adding 3 to the attack die roll of the Germans. It took a little bit of work. It took a lot of resources to just take those two hexes. And again, given that no zones of control extend in these hexes, pocketing to cut off supply could be a tricky thing. I was trying to see how it would work because I figured, there's a lot of units here in tough terrain, and the Germans just couldn't do it in turn 2. Some other things that happened, you can see a lot of the Soviet units that were over here. They either pulled back, a lot of them were destroyed. I sort of had a couple of units running up the chain while artillery was supporting them. Down here, not much changed. I reinforced some units so they weren't quite so alone. They managed to take out a little bit here on the road, the Soviet units that were on the road. I made an attack. Here's Chukov right here. I made an attack on his stack that was in the October Gardens. October Gardens turns out to be basically normal terrain. It doesn't do much. You can see it's the park. It adds a little bit. But otherwise, it's not much else. The stack was wiped out. Then what you do is you roll a 1d6. And I think on a 6 or a 1, I forget which one, Zhukov is killed and removed from the game. That didn't happen. He managed to escape. I realized that this supply depot was starting to get threatened. And so as part of my movement, I pulled back, sent reinforcements. If you lose that shit, artillery fires at half strength for the rest of the game. So it's important that the Soviets keep that shit on the board. I have to figure out if I can move it, but for right now, it's in a factory, so it's in a good spot. Now it's decently defended, and there's not many German units threatening. So hopefully I can keep that going for the Soviets. Looking forward to turn 3. I have to see, how many of these German units come back. I've got to double check to see if any of these units come back at all. I know certain types of artillery and stuff don't come back. Those are, I think, like anti-tank kinds of guns, stuff like that. So I have to see if they come back. I know I was talking about at one point in the recording units with anti-aircraft capability. There you can see the little 3 right there. I'm not sure. It's right on the edge. But the Germans here's another one. The Germans are starting to get units that can help, keep some of the Soviet dive points at bay. Not that the Soviets get much, but, I'll see what I can do. The Germans for turn 3 is going to be tough. They have to lose the 29th Motorized Division. So there's a bunch of units I'm going to have to pull back. And I already feel like the Germans are a little short. I've only taken 2 victory hexes through 2 turns. I was looking at the intro scenario to this. The intro scenario is basically a 1-turn scenario. And while the Germans get 2 victory points for every victory hex they take, at the end of turn 1, I had captured 0. So I don't think I'm doing well with the Germans. At first I was like, oh, look at the Germans just rolling. But then I started to really get bogged down into this heavy structure kind of terrain. And yeah, and just the numbers that are starting to come in for the Soviets, you can see it's just putting up a wall there that it'll be interesting to see what the Germans can do, because they don't get any reinforcements in the 7th turn. 4th is okay. 5th is a nice push. 6th is not much of anything. Although I will say the Soviets, their reinforcements kind of start to thin out here, but they're going to start getting a lot more Trans-Volga artillery. I was having some trouble deciding what to do with some of my Trans-Volga artillery, because you can see like some of these units, I think this only has a range of 2. 1, 2. I don't know where to put it. This has a range of 3. 1, 2, 3. So at least it can get across shore. But I was debating it. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with the Trans-Volga, because that range doesn't seem... Let me just double check that range. I might I might have these numbers backwards. So I'm going to hold this up for a second. So you can see, like, it says range, fire strength, gun type, movement allowance. But then this says A, B. So maybe A, fire strength is that, range is the middle. Maybe I have those 2 flipped. It's one of the many things I've done wrong. So maybe it's not so big a deal. Maybe it's, attack of 3, range of 8, and then it's no problem. That would make a lot more sense. But yeah, when I was just sort of doing a quick scan, this kind of positioning sort of threw me off on how they presented the information. But otherwise, I know there's a lot of things I'm probably getting wrong overall. Probably forgetting to do things I could be doing to help either side out, but hopefully my ignorance and incompetence balances out in the long run. But otherwise, yeah, still enjoying it. This second turn probably took me maybe an hour. It definitely moved a lot more smoothly. Not filming. It moved a lot more smoothly because I feel like I've started to really internalize some of the rules, some of the basic game flow. So we'll see how the third turn goes. And, like I said a couple of times in the full turn that I covered, that I could see this game really moving between like a good solo player who knows the rules or 2 fairly experienced players playing face to face. They say this game could take like 10 hours, 8 hours. I don't know what the exact estimate was, but I could easily see this being like a good solid 1-day play for people who sort of knew what they were doing. And I could see that being a fun thing, a fun Battle for Stalingrad game in 1 day. Like, that seems like it's a good thing if you're interested in Stalingrad to have on your shelf. So I'll move on to turn 3 and we'll go from there. You can see everything's flipped to the black text already. I just figured I'd take care of that beforehand. But otherwise, yeah, we'll get back to it. Thanks.